All right, let's pause this. Lesson 4, dimensional analysis and scientific notation. Actually, one of the handiest tricks, one of the handiest skills that I can give you, unit conversion. And those of you that take chemistry, this will also come in very handy. Those of you that take any kind of architecture course, this will also come in handy. But we start with scientific notation. I wrote, write the following in scientific notation. In theory, this is supposed to be review. How would I write 310,000 in scientific notation? What's the syntax for scientific notation? First of all, there's going to be a decimal point, right? How many numbers go in front of, to the left of, the decimal point in scientific notation if you're doing it properly? Only one. So it's going to be 3.1. We don't write any of the trailing zeros. Those are placeholders. By the way, number 1, how many sig figs is 310,000? 2, can you see the scientific notation portion that I've just written? It's really easy to tell how many sig figs there are. You just count. And then you replace the rest of those trailing zeros with 10 to the most common mistake I see, kids go like this. Don't write this down. Where did the 4 come from? And why is it wrong? First of all, where did the 4 come from? They just count the number of zeros. You're not counting the number of zeros. Thomas, what you're counting is how many decimal places, how many places you've moved the decimal point, which used to be there invisibly, and now it's moved 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's not going to be 3.1 times 10 to the 4th. It's going to be 3.1 times 10 to the 5th. Get your calculators out. How do you type this in? Here is how you don't type this in. You do not type 3.1 times 10 to the power of 5. That may look right, but I guarantee it's going to come back to haunt you. Trust me. So what all of you are going to type is 3.1. And then you need to find your scientific notation button. I've probably done this once before, but it bears repeating. Your scientific notation button looks like either an EXP button. It may be above the 7. It may be on the bottom row. I'll get to yours in a second, Alexa. It may look like, if you have a TI, a little EE button. It may look like a times 10 to the X button. Alexa, on ours, it's right there, and it's in yellow, so it's going to be second function, comma. Okay. Find your scientific notation button, and if you can't, now is the time to ask me, and I have to help you find it. Oh, and you're not going to press times. You're not going to type 10. You're going to go 3.1 and press the scientific notation button. Is there anybody that can't find it? Okay. You'd be right there. So you've hit your scientific notation button, and then 5. Your calculator knows to treat that whole thing like one number. So if you divide, it's going to know that you want to divide everything there. Or if you multiply, it's going to know that you want to multiply everything there. Or if you square it, it's going to know that you want to square everything there. If you don't use your scientific notation button, you're going to be assuming that your calculator knows you're in scientific notation. It won't, and a lot of our operations, you'll be getting the wrong answer and not knowing why. So if you hit equals or enter, it should say 310,000. Okay? That's also one way of checking that you've typed it in right. Example 2. How would I handwrite this in scientific notation? 1 point. I'll write all of the non-trailing zeros, so 2044 times 10 to the times 10 to the what? Count carefully. Is it 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I think I'm getting 10. By the way, I'm glad you did, Jordan. That happens all the time. On a test or on a quiz, you'll almost always see that I still do like I did in high school. I literally go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In the homework, because I'm trying to do in my head as much as I can in the home, I'll try and, 3, 3, 3, 1 is probably how I would have counted that. But don't be scared on tests to do it the long way. Times 10 to the what? 10th. So I write that, but on my calculator, I would type 1.2044, scientific notation button, exponent. Again, Kyle, you'll notice I did not hit the times sign. I did not type a 10. I just typed the prefix, the scientific notation button, and the exponent. And on my calculator, that looks like, oh, you know what? My calculator can't display that, so it's just giving it to me in scientific notation. Now, that's important, though, Spencer, because sometimes you get answers in scientific notation, and you have to be able to interpret that on your calculator. So the cheap ones, there'll be a little space, and you have to clue in. I have to replace it with a times 10 to the, or you can just cave and get a half-decent, I'm just saying. Number 3, 31.62. What? That's not scientific notation. 3.162 times 10 to the 1. You know what? Because it's understood, there's always a 1 there. If you just did that, fine. In fact, I'll be honest, Danielle, unless they told me, I'm not writing 31.62 in scientific notation. Anything up to about 10,000, I usually just write out. Scientific notation, to me, was meant to be a shortcut. On your test, I will occasionally order you to write a short number in scientific notation. After this unit, we'll use scientific notation when it's less writing. We'll use the full written out version when it's less writing. So for example, number 4 there, 10, okay, it's going to be 1. Why did I add 2 zeros? How many sig figs does 10.0 have? 3, because otherwise, why would I put the 0.0 there? How many sig figs then did I have in my scientific notation? 3 times 10 to the also 1. All right, decimals. 4.5 times 10 to the, how do we show that numbers are getting smaller? The negative exponent, which actually means divide, but we're just going to use a negative exponent. So again, we're going to go like this. 1, 2, we moved the decimal 3 decimal locations, but to show that it's a decimal, we're getting smaller, to the negative 3. On your calculators, if you type 4.5, scientific notation button, you need to make sure, Natalia, that you use a negative sign and not a subtraction sign. If you put a subtraction sign there, 3, and hit enter, you're going to get an error. Most of your calculators are going to force you to know the difference between a negative and a subtraction, which is good. On the fancier calculators, it might even have a go-to option. If you pick that option, it'll put the cursor where the error is, which helps you find it faster. And I would say, oh, that's supposed to be a negative. On my TI, a negative is shorter and higher, a subtraction is longer and in the middle. Okay? 0.0045. 7, oh, that thing. Well, it would be 7.06 times 10 to the negative. What? 9, or is that a German saying no? 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mr. Dueck, will we be dealing with numbers that big and that small? Oh, yes. Far bigger and far smaller. You'll be using lots of scientific notation, especially in the gravitation unit. Number 7. How many sig figs does number 7 have? 3. Otherwise, why would they put those trailing zeros there, right? So it's going to be 6.00, 3 sig figs, times 10 to the negative. I counted wrong. 1, 2, 7? Double check. Yeah? Yeah? Number 8. This one's stupid. I would never, in real life, write this in scientific notation, because scientific notation is longer than the actual original version, but it would be 6.30, because it's 3 sig figs, times 10 to the, who remembers? Yeah, 10 to the 0 power, because what's anything to the 0 power? Don't say 0. What's anything to the 0 power? And if you blank out, you can look at the clock behind me. Oh, no, never mind. I used to have a math clock there. I've taken it down. Now it's a periodic table clock. Sorry. I used to have pi to the, all sorts of, well, I used to have this guy. So you had to do math. Now I've got the periodic table because I'm teaching science.
You mean you got to tell time and use your brain?
Yeah, in my class. Going backwards, write the following in standard form. Okay. 2.34 times 10 to the 7th. I'll give you a hint. 2 times 10 to the what? Times 10 to the what?
7.
One more time. Times 10 to the what? You're right.
7.
7. So here's how I do that. I write the first digit. Times 10 to the what?
7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. After I write down the first digit, then I just keep track. Every digit I write counts as 1, and once I run out, I fill the rest with zeros until I get up to the exponent. 1.5 times 10 to the 3, 1. Times 10 to the what? 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 times 10 to the 0, 3 times 10 to the what? Oh, nothing. Oh, 3. Negative exponent, little trick here. 0 point times 10 to the what? Negative 5, negative what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 6, 7. Those look like 6s. Those are terrible zeros. Let me try that again. So you'll notice, even though the exponent is 5, how many zeros are there after the decimal point? 4, before you hit your first digit. 1.3 times 10 to the negative 8, negative, so it's going to be 0 point, negative what? 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3. Three times 10 to the 8th? 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I usually go back and put commas every 3 zeros because that helps me figure out that that's 300 million. And we looked at that website, the Mega Penny Project, right, where we're dealing with really big and really small numbers. They appear in nature. Oscar, you gonna make it? Because you're not looking good. Calculate the following. On your test, I'm going to give you some questions to write in standard form, some questions to write in scientific notation, and then some questions to actually calculate. And what I mean by that is you're going to use your calculator completely. Now, when I handwrite, look up. Showing multiplication when you handwrite, brackets work great. They don't work so good on my calculator. Put your pencils down, look up. See, one way for me to type example 1 would be like this. Bracket 1.34, scientific notation button 7, close bracket, open bracket, 2.2, scientific notation button -4, divided by bracket 1.8, scientific notation button 12. That's one way. That's not how I would type it. I would type it this way and see if you can see which one is easier to understand on your calculator. I think the second one with fewer brackets, I replaced the brackets with a time sign. Because on a one-line calculator display, Max, that's way easier to follow. Way easier to follow. So I replaced this with a times sign. Try typing this into your calculator. And if you type it correctly, you should get 1.6377. Try typing this into your calculator. And if you type it incorrectly, you should get what I got. 1.63777, blah, 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 blah. You should be typing it from this equation, not from my calculator. Because you're going to have the equation in front of you, not the calculator in front of you. You know you have the equation right in front of you. Right? Number 1 there? Just saying. And if you didn't get that when you hit equals or enter, now is your chance to ask, and I'll come and we'll find the typo. Oh, yep. I thought everybody got it. I was like, holy smokes. What was the answer? It was 1 point now. Oh, hey, you know what? How many sig figs? 3. How many sig figs? 2. How many sig figs? When you're multiplying, the rule is fewest number of sig figs. So even though my graphing calculator gives me all that, it's just going to be 1.6 times 10 to the -9. Let's try example 2. All clear? So I'm going to use times signs instead of all those brackets. 6.67, scientific notation, -11, times 5.98, scientific notation button 24, times 1200, divided by 6.38. Oh, you know what? There's a squared. I may have to put this in brackets. Let's be paranoid. Bracket 6.38, scientific notation button 1/8 squared. So try typing that in. And you're going to end up, hopefully, with 1.175, well, that. Okay? And Kyle, by the end of this year, you'll know how to make your calculators start to sing. We have the technology. I'm really going to push you to get good at these. We'll find some stuff that you didn't know you could do with your calculators. Anybody not get that? And again, I'll come around and help. You also need to find where your x squared button is. Got it okay, Thomas? Yep. Okay. Hey, how many sig figs? 6.67 times 10. By the way, are you seeing the nice thing about scientific notation? Sig figs are easy. How many sig figs in this first number? 3. How many sig figs in the second number? 3. How many in the third number? 2. How many in the bottom number? What was the fewest? We're multiplying and dividing, so I guess to 2 sig figs. So my answer is not going to be 1.1758. What am I going to write? 1.2. 1.2. Pause here.